This is the beginning of part 2 of our module, Introduction to Foreign Exchange, which discusses the basics of FX spot and forward transactions and of the commonly used instrument known as an FX swap. We remind you that this part 2 contains chapters 3 to 5 of the module, with chapter 3 teaching you how to combine a spot and forward transaction into an FX swap and to analyze the sensitivities of this instrument to movements in FX and interest rates. Chapter 4 illustrating some of the most common applications of forwards, swaps, and related instruments. And finally, Chapter 5 containing 6 quiz questions to test your understanding of these materials. This Chapter 3 teaches you how to combine a spot and forward transaction into an FX swap, and again analyzes the sensitivities of this instrument to movements in FX spot and interest rates. So far, we have seen two types of currency transactions, the spot and the forward. In this Chapter 3, we discuss a third type of instrument known as the FX swap. Importantly, this instrument should not be confused with a cross-currency swap, an instrument that is discussed separately in our module Interest Rate, Forwards, and Swaps, although certain similarities do exist between the two instruments. An FX swap consists of an exchange of currencies for a near value date combined with a reversal of that exchange at some value date that is further into the future. The near value date for the first leg often is the spot value date. The trading and hedging applications of an FX swap are covered a little later in this module, but for now we concentrate on the mechanics and sensitivities of the instrument. In any FX swap, either the base currency or the term currency notional is usually held constant under both legs of the trade, i.e. under the spot and the forward leg, while for the second currency the notional amounts may differ between those two legs. You will soon come to appreciate that the main factor to which the user of an FX swap is exposed is the movements in the yield curves of the two currencies, and particularly movements in the portion of the curves between the near value date and the far value date. You will also learn that changes in the FX spot rate have a relatively small impact on the value of the user's position. For this reason, an FX swap is typically quoted in forward points, with the quote being the difference between the points for the far value date and those for the near value date. It follows that when the near value date is spot, the quote for an FX swap is exactly equal to the quote for an outright forward settling on the same date as the far value date of the swap. To illustrate, we take the example of a euro-dollar spot to 6-month swap, referred to simply as the 6-month swap, which has its near value date as the spot date and its far value date as the 6-month forward date. This swap has the same quote as the 6-month forward, i.e. points of 144, 142. A counterparty who wishes to sell 10 million euro spot and buy 10 million euros 6 months forward will transact what is known as a sell and buy swap at minus 142 on 10 million euro. Thus he will sell 10 million euro dollar at 144 for value spot, and he will buy 10 million euro dollar forward at 142.58 for value 6 months. We now examine on this worksheet labeled Impact of FX Spot the scenario where an investor executes a 6-month euro-dollar sell and buy swap on a notional of 10 million euros per leg. For the sake of simplicity, we ignore the spot's bid offer and simply use a spot of 144 and US dollar and euro 6-month interest rates of 2% and 4% respectively. The corresponding forward rate turns out to be 1.4258 as appears in this cell D21, where once again we have used quite simply the old formula for an outright forward, assuming a day count of 181 days. We next simulate instantaneous variations in the spot FX rate of increments of 1 American cent while holding the two interest rates constant. Column D calculates the corresponding forwards for each spot level, and columns E and F show the gains or losses for each of the short spot leg and also the long forward 6-month leg. Finally, column G shows the calculation of the net gains or losses under the combined legs of the original FX swap. We should not be surprised to find the impact of FX spot movements to be as negligible as they appear in column G, since we are long and short euros in equal notional amounts under the two legs of the swap, and therefore have only the very marginal sensitivity to FX spot that results from the difference in the two value dates. In this next worksheet, we assume that the FX spot rate and the base currency interest rate remain constant, and we vary only the term currency interest rate by increments of 50 basis points. Column E calculates the corresponding interest rate differential. Columns G and H show the gains and losses already present valued in the case of the forward for each of the short spot leg and the long 6-month forward leg. Finally, column I combines the gains and losses to derive the gains and losses for the FX swap as a whole. These visibly stem entirely from the movement in the value of the forward, and of course are linked to the rate itself in column F. which in turn results from the variation in the term currency interest rate, more specifically from the variation in the differential between the two interest rates, and not on the spot, which is assumed to remain constant. As expected, you can see that when the interest rate differential widens, the swap generates a loss due to the decline in the value of the forward leg. Conversely, when the interest rate differential tightens, the swap generates a gain due to the increase in the value of the forward leg. This completes Chapter 3 of this module.